Originally, fire belonged to bear, and man came along and heard the cry of fire. Bear wasn't feeding fire, so man fed the fire sticks and brush, and from that point on, fire belonged to the Alabama Creek.
These lands were customarily burned either by nature or by the Indians before the white man came. Smokey the Bear and previous generations of white men have done some real damage by keeping fire out of the woods.
The longleaf was the tree that covered the southeast, and it did because it was adapted to everything that kills the other southern pines. It was adapted to fire, so it was more fire resistant. It was adapted to the insects, the southern pine beetles, the ips and the turpentine beetles. It's a stronger wood, so it was more resistant to winds and the hurricanes that frequently hit this area. I'm working on the building for my Lord. Over the last decade, we've planted hundreds of millions of longleaf pine seedlings, and we think that we may have added up to close to 1 million acres of planting of longleaf pines. So we're on an upward trajectory. Now, how much of it we're going to restore, I don't know. If the public is scared of prescribed fire and supports politicians who put legislation through that limits our ability to burn, again, we will lose the longleaf pine forest.
Burning does bother some of them a little bit. I have to remind folks that we know what we're doing. We have the county fire suppression crews available if necessary, so that they don't get, in fact, I have to keep reminding Betsy of that sometimes.
The truth is out. I hate to burn. I have a fear of fire.
We love to burn. I'll repeat that, we love to burn, but we love to prescribe burn. When I took the burn manager's course and became certified, it opened up a new insight, a respect. That's the word I'm looking for, a respect for fire.
Hi, I'm calling for a burn authorization for today. It is southeast quarter, section 30, 1N, 17 west. Historically, this would have been dominated by longleaf. The slash grew really well on some of these soils, though, and so when we were thinning it, we get a lot of product other than pulpwood.
You can turn a profit in a given year.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. There's
Well,
no
not a
problem
profit.
with
No, I mean, we've never turned a profit. I would say we,
but
because we spend a lot of money on our restoration. The idea is just to offset the costs of the restoration.
A developer couldn't come in and destroy a wetland without some sort of compensation. They've got to mitigate those impacts somewhere else. And we've developed the someplace else. The Pensacola Bay Mitigation Bank was a highly degraded wetland. It didn't have that regular frequency of fire, so that, say, every 15 years or so, a very intense wildfire would come through. We took that property and started down this restoration path, primarily putting regular, low-intensity fire back into this wetland. And lo and behold, it was a diamond in the rough. The wiregrass started to come back. The longleaf pine that was barely holding on flourished. And this whole suite of pitcher plants, some rare, flourished as well.
By having fire, we're going to be encouraging the ground cover species, the herbaceous plants, the things that, say, gopher tortoises eat, the things that produce seeds that the rodents feed on, that the snakes then in turn feed on. We got $25,000 for the 70-acre piece of land. Put in some breeding ponds for amphibians. We're doing this Head Start program with the gopher tortoise. Without government assistance, we couldn't have done half of what we've done so far.
In 1939 was still deep depression. Grandma was having trouble paying the taxes on the land. I don't believe she could do it. And so Dad left his degree program and took a job in Wichita, Kansas, where I grew up. That allowed him to purchase the land from my grandmother. He was able to keep the land in the family, and it was passed on to my brother and myself.
It's a rough job these guys have here today. There's a lot of understory, brush and so forth, that they're having to wade through. What was supposed to happen was a hot burn. That didn't happen because we had heavy rains this fall. Probably a year from now, and maybe more, we'll run a fire over this land, take down all the brush, and those seedlings, because they are longleaf, most of them will survive it.
We are part of the largest remaining piece of that 90 million acre longleaf pine forest that once covered the entire southern coastal plain. The folks there at the Longleaf Alliance are trying to restore that, and so are we now. We wanted longleaf here, and now we want it here for an additional reason.